Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Season 5 video. And today we are here to take a look at the Episode 5 extra details given to us by the Danmachi anime Twitter and the production staff. And along with that, we're going to be checking out what Omori also has to add in regards to the latest episode of Danmachi Season 5. Now, of course, if you guys want to enjoy today's video, please be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section below regarding this episode, of course, in terms of its extra details. Do you think that these extra details should have been included in the anime in some way, shape, or form? Or do you think that they're fine enough to skip and gloss over as long as they're being given to you via these Twitter accounts or through other sources? Because, again, I think it's quite nice that they're doing this, but it always feels like, well, you have to kind of go out of your way to look at Twitter, or you have to go and watch a video like you're watching my video to have an idea on what these extra details are, rather than it being in the anime, which is kind of frustrating, I know, for a lot of people. But let me know your guys' thoughts. I'm glad that they're doing it, at least, you know, so that people aren't unaware of exactly what happens in the anime. But how many of you guys are going to watch this video? You know, you guys have to actually, you know, go out of your way to go through Reddit or go through a video or go through Twitter to be able to see this. So let me know in the comments. I'm quite curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Now, of course, this episode I think will probably feature the most extra details because of how rushed it felt, right? The episode felt, generally speaking, quite a bit rushed, and I'll cover that a little bit more in the cut contents video, of course, right? As to how rushed it was and whether or not it was rushed because entire scene was cut, or was it just chops across the board, of course, right? But in this video, I feel like we're gonna see a lot of comments via Omori sensei and of course the animation production team, because they know, and I'm basing on what I've read so far a little bit, right? I haven't looked into the details completely, but I, you know, skimmed through some of them just to get an idea of how long this video is going to be and what I need to talk about, generally speaking, throughout the video. That they know it as well, that they had to cut a couple of things in order to make the time that they were obviously given, right? Because remember, at the end of the day, JC staff and the production team in JC staff, along with the Omori sensei, they have a set time that they have to adhere to, right? You're only given a specific time slot, you have to adhere to it, and along with that, you also have to you know, you have obligations of fulfilling the episode counts and stuff like that. So they're gonna have to make these hard decisions, and they're gonna have to make these decisions in regards to what content should be in the episode and what shouldn't be in the episode without it affecting the other episodes, right? Because the moment you start cutting something from one episode to put it into the next episode, well, then the next episode will have to then you know, potentially cut things so that it has to go into the next episode. It's a domino effect, right? It ends up becoming a domino effect. It's why a lot of people, when they say like, oh, we need the Eyes and Albert scene in episode 1, well, I'd argue I don't think I'd cut anything from episode 1. And some people were saying then, well, I would have put the hating scene at the end in the next episode. Well, that's not how it works, because then the next episode, what are you going to cut from the next episode? And, you know, and so on and so forth. What are you going to shorten from the next episode? You can't shorten anything because the next episode was pretty much, you know, spot on in terms of the content anyways. You see what I mean, right? It just becomes a domino effect. So some people need to remember that when it comes to these adaptations, is like, you have to obviously, you know, pick and choose what you want to put in, considering the episode count and the time you have, of course. Now, do I think that skipping out on the OP and EDs throughout all these episodes, except for maybe like episode 1 and 2 and maybe the last couple of episodes here and there, is a better idea? Absolutely. I think that would give them an easy like 4 minutes per episode, right? 3 minutes, actually, more so. I'll say 3 minutes per episode. That would help so much. But again, you have to have obligations to obviously have the song in for a set amount of episodes and so on and so forth, and that can be quite tricky. But anyways, anime production discussions aside, of course, right? Let me know if you guys would like to have a video just talking about that, because I think I could talk quite a bit about that. I'm not like, I will say I'm not the most well versed with it, but there are things I know that, you know, people don't really think about necessarily when, you know, they're talking about the anime. But anyways, all that aside, let's take a look at the extra details. We'll start off with the Danmachi anime Twitter account. We'll see what tips they have first and foremost for us, and then we'll check out Omori sensei's Twitter account as well. So starting off with the first tip from episode 5, the first time Hestia meets Seer in episode 4, it is a horn. I don't know why it said Hern. I was like, I just read it as it was. it is Horn who has transformed using transformation magic, the secret of secrets that allows a person to turn into a god, ignoring the laws of the world. Even with the divine eyes of Hestia, all she could see was something like a goddess, which, yeah, I mean, that is something that obviously, I mean, they had to do that. Freya had to know that, you know, the transformation magic that Horn is able to use needs to be able to, or should be able to, confuse some of the goddesses out there. I think in the light novels, and I'll talk about this right now, if I'm not mistaken, the only person who has somewhat of a suspicion regarding Horn and Freya and all of that is Loki. And that's because Loki has worked with Freya for like 15 years now, 16 plus years basically. They've been in Orario and, you know, worked their way to the top in Orario simultaneously. So they know, you know, each other's familiars and each other's habits well enough. I wouldn't say that Loki is super familiar with Freya and is super close to Freya, but she knows, like, you know, as a sort of like rival familiar as to what she's capable of being like, and especially as a familiar who, you know, to both familiars who effectively took over Orario after they chased out Zeus and Hera's familiars, they know this. So yeah. By the way, to avoid any confusion among the staff, we use the spelling Seer and Seer, which is the disguised version of Horn, in the scenario as we went along with the production. That's actually a pretty good way of doing it, of course, right? Especially because they obviously have Omori with them, so Omori can let them know, like, you know, this was Freya when she was Horn, or this was Horn when she was Freya, or this was Horn when she was Seer, this is Freya when she's Seer, and this is Freya when she's actually Freya, and so on and so forth. So I think that's pretty cool, and a good way of, you know, making sure that even the staff members aren't confused, because especially if you're reading it for the first time, or, you know, you're adapting it as you're reading the story, which I think is I personally wouldn't have done it that way. If I'm animating a series, and I know I'm going to be animating future seasons, and we're going to continuously adapt future seasons, I would have probably read the entire light novel, you know, or I've read the light novel as it released. So, but there might be, you know, staff members who are new to the series, right? At the end of the day, they hire and fire people in these production studios. So obviously, if you're a new person, maybe you've outsourced some group of people that may not know who these characters are and are brand new to the series. For them, it'll become easier to obviously know what they're working with and who they're, you know, who these characters are, of course, right? So I think that's pretty cool in that sense. Secret tips number 2. The fan that Haruhime is holding is the first time the magical fan Sakura Mai appears in the anime. This is a proper weapon made by Web that functions similarly to a magician's wand. There are also magic sword-shaped fans that have magical attack effects as well. Now, this is, of course, pretty interesting. I wasn't expecting this at all, and I couldn't even remember if there was a mention of it in the light novels, actually. But it's cool to see Haruhime's weapon for the first time in anime, of course, right? And one of the things that I was gonna, you know, say, like, when I watched the episode, and I didn't even think about it at the time, but I rewatched the episode and I thought this was, I really wish they'd gone with the Danmimo version of Haruhime's weapon. In Danmimo, she had a small mini hammer, basically like a mallet, effectively, and I think that would have been so cute and adorable and unique to Haruhime as well. The fan fits her, of course, right? The Far Eastern, you know, culture that she's got and everything. I think it fits her, of course, right? But the hammer would have been a bit more unique, a bit more contradictory to how she is as a character and everything. I think that would have been so cool. And I think it would have been nice to have in the anime as well. I think it would have been good to have it in the main series as well. Giving her the hammer that was in Danmimo would have been great. I also think partially that Omori kind of forgot about the hammer from Danmimo as well. But either way, you know. Now, let's take a look at episode 5's third tip. Freya's familiar's base, Folkwagner Field of Battle, is located in the 5th district south of the city. The site is surrounded by walls on all sides and includes a vast field and a luxurious palace, with Freya residing in both the top floor of Babel and this palace. What this wilderness is being used for will be revealed in the next episode next week. So, of course, Folkwagner is a very, very interesting place. And I mean, obviously, you might be thinking, of course, with these green lands and everything, it's kind of like, because it's on top of a hill, you can see the green lands and stuff, right? Hence why it looks that way. Otherwise, it's not really like, you know, I remember when, you know, they mentioned the description in the light novel and stuff. I initially thought that it was outside of Orario, it felt like. But then, of course, when you look at it in the anime and stuff, the greenery around it and everything, it's actually, you know, on that sort of area, basically. So it's cool in that sense. It is pretty cool in that sense. Now, tip number 4. Because I couldn't bend Bel, I bent everything except Bel, Freya's charm. Without using the power of God that is sealed away in the lower world, they were able to take control of the entire city using only the power of beauty. Freya's people are aware of this setting because the charm is being removed from them after it was cast on them. So Freya actually charmed everybody, including her own family members and the executives as well. But then after she had charmed everybody and everything, she decided to remove the effects of the charm from the executives, so they know and are aware of exactly what went down effectively. Them closing their eyes didn't make a difference, by the way. That was just them sort of accepting it basically and getting ready for Freya to do the deed basically. But a lot of people were suggesting, I know some people were talking about it and saying like, oh, you know, technically how was, you know, nobody expecting this to happen, you know, if Freya's capable of doing this. The thing is, these gods and goddesses have to abide by the rules and regulations set out by the, you know, to them when they come to the, when they come to earth, or when they come to the lower world from heaven. And obviously, you know, you trust these individuals, especially Freya has been around for 20 plus years, effectively 20, 25, maybe even more years, right, around these streets of Orario and stuff. And, you know, she has been abiding by the rules and regulations for so long that you would assume that she'd be trustworthy enough to not do this sort of thing. Now, of course, you also have to realize as well that the guild will also allow a little bit of leeway to Freya as well, because of how strong her familiar is. And the reason for that is because of the one-eyed black dragon that's, you know, still about. They know, you know, the guild, for example, knows that they can't really do anything about Freya, because if Freya does, if they annoy Freya or disband the Freya familiar or something along those lines, they lose a big opportunity to actually beat the one-eyed black dragon, because of course, you know, they need to be at their strongest. So they let Freya familiar do certain things, they let the Loki familiar do certain things as well, because they cannot afford to lose them in any way, shape or form. So that's the other point of it. But then also, like I said initially, is just like, I don't think anybody was expecting it. Even Hermes, when the episode itself says, right, he says, right, that I wasn't expecting that she would do such a thing immediately. So like, you know, he initially thought that, okay, she's playing this sort of game for 6 months, we have to just deal with it. He didn't realize that she was gonna go all this way to just charm everybody. Like, he immediately realized what she was gonna do. He wasn't expecting it beforehand, though, for her to take this big of a step immediately. So that is something to bear in mind. Is like, at the end of the day, like, yes, while from an outside perspective we know how obsessive she was from the very beginning, you could argue, from season 1 and season 2, right? But even then, even back then, she never really made that big step and pushed for, you know, such a, you know, rash, irrational decision to be made even back then. Otherwise, she could have done this like 4 seasons ago, technically, right? But she didn't, so we assumed that she wasn't gonna do it, but lo and behold, she ended up doing it. So, you know, like I said, love is irrational. So yeah, that is rough. So that seems to be the last tip from, of course, the Danmachi anime Twitter account. So that is that, of course, right? So let's take a look over to Omori's Twitter account and see what he has to add. So Horn's transformation magic cannot use Freya's powers at all. So that's something to clarify here as well. But what it can do is be good enough to confuse the other gods and goddesses. So that is something to keep in mind there as well. It is a very interesting power, of course, right? And one thing to acknowledge, and a lot of people were actually asking this question as well, when Horn becomes seer, Freya can also become seer. It's not like, oh, they have to be there, you know, only one person can become seer at a time. No, they can actually transform into the characters whenever they want and however they want. It's just that they have to be careful there. This is the first time that both Seer and Freya have spoken about their inner thoughts, so I'm pretty excited. Obviously, the monologue at the start of the episode was very good. I agree with that. A lot of people are frustrated about the eye screen time skip with Tiona and Tiona. We'll talk about that in the cut contents video. Don't worry about that. That will be happening very, very soon. Actually, after this video goes out, I'm going to be actually working on that video sooner rather than later. But let's see. What was this? When she was upset, I felt like Ryu from Astrea Familia came out. When she apologized, she returned to the current Ryu-san. In my opinion, whether that's good or bad, I like how straightforward and sincere Ryu is. I agree with this. I kind of felt that way watching the anime as well, and when I was reading the light novel, is I really liked when she was, getting annoyed at Belle for rejecting Seer's feelings. It felt like that Ryu from Astrea Familia was back. That more open, the more annoyed and angry sort of Ryu was back again, like from that Astrea record era and stuff like that. But then, of course, it kind of came back to the more demure, the more calm, the more experienced Ryu, you could say, came back to life after, Belle apologized or Belle explained his reasoning and she had to apologize, of course, right? So that's pretty cool. Alright, I swear this guy is going to spoil everything about, Haruhime Chronicles before it actually even happens. So, Haruhime's Familiar Chronicles was technically going to show the weapon and the weapon creation. Of course, the Sakura Mai fan, of course. It's a melee it can be used as a melee weapon, but its main function is to amplify magical effects just like a magician's staff, which is very cool because of course we know how good her magic powers are, especially the buff abilities that she has, which is pretty darn cool. Welf absolutely got demolished. Yeah, Welf got probably one of the biggest beat downs, to be honest, out of the lot, to be fair. I mean, we had, of course, Lily's arm being broken, Haruhime being curb stomped. Yeah, it was bad. Freya, who ordered the assault, is aware of the decency that she spoke of to Ishtar that backfired on her, so she remains expressionless the whole time. Self-mockery, emptiness, disgust, and heavy feelings. Yeah, that is very accurate, to be honest, about Freya. What is this? At this point, Hermes predicted 2 to 3, 4 moves ahead. Yeah, I mean, he did, but then he didn't expect to what extent Home Slice was gonna go. The charm effect is even more amazing than I expected. I'm just going through these tweets because there might be something interesting in terms of the parts that Omori is mentioning. It's a beautiful dawn. Have you still not been freed from the curse of eating? Good morning. Are you not eating? For fuck's sake. Hegni is the goat, man. Hegni is the goat. I love Hegni. Scared Moro, all adventures end up like this no matter who they bump into. In Freya Familia, Loki Familia is a hot button situation. Well, good old Mord, man. Good old Mord, of course. Good old Mord. Okay, we can't translate this. Let me see what it says. It's got a beautiful image of Freya, of course. Nothing works on the one person you want to put in the first position, so you twisted the rest of the world to the point of being the last boss. It's how it is. It's how it is. Alright, let's go ahead a little bit and let's read this because the threads are always the most interesting one of the lot. A little addition this week, memory tamperings. There were a lot of characters involved, so it was omitted in the anime. The principle is, everyone is smitten with Freya. Please think of Belle as Freya Familia, she asks. Everyone is, yes, it's like this. Pretty simple, but very accurate, I would say. Very, very simple, but very, very accurate. In fact, even after the final day of the Goddess Festival, she has been working with Horn to charm the entire city so that nothing is overlooked. She has created a miniature garden that is distorted with diligence, care, and obsession that is uncharacteristic of Freya. There are many other restrictions I'm asking the people and gods to fulfill, but that will be in the next anime or supplement, so it'll be in the next episode. So you'll see exactly who all have been charmed, who all have not been charmed, what's been happening, who's been affected, because of course I know some people were asking about like Uranos, like if he's charmed, how is he handling the dungeon stuff, right? You'll find out in the next episode. Eyes, what's happening with her? Eyes and Loki Familia, did they get affected by it, considering how strong they are? What's happened with Asfi and Ryu? They were sent to the skies. Were they still affected by it, or were they able to escape the effects? So you'll find out in the next episode exactly what's happening there. Horn's transformation magic, a magic that allows you to transform into Freya. My intense desire to become a goddess took shape. Although she cannot use the power of the gods, she can use the charm ability derived from the authority of beauty. However, at her current stage, Horn is still unable to charm the gods. She can make lower-ranking relatives or lower-ranking family members fall head over heels in love with her. So she can still use some of the charm ability, but not all of it as well as as Freya, of course. This is. Executives are here. The 4 Gulliver brothers all have the same face and voice, so when they're all together in the anime, there is a concern that it might be confusing. The eldest son, Alfred, spoke on behalf of the group. There is a rule that the younger brothers all speak in unison. Taichi Ichikawa's every word is amazing, so be sure to check it out. Yeah, I think the Gulliver brothers and how they handle them in the anime and stuff has been brilliant in my opinion. I think that it was very well done. Thank you for episode 5. This is the true extent of the final boss goddess who will stop nothing at to save her means. Please watch over the next episode, see what happens to Belle and the others who have been thrown into the depths of despair. Please look forward to episode 6. Now, we already have the preview for episode 6. It's been that late. Making this video has been that late. But definitely, I'm very much looking forward to it, of course, right? We'll cover it in the next on Thursday as well. But the next video we're going to be doing is the cut contents video. I think the tips and stuff were pretty darn good. But of course, I have to talk about the cut contents as well, because I think that's going to be the big thing from this episode, I feel, right? So definitely be on the lookout for that. That'll be the next one. You guys have to watch that one. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video as well. It's truly appreciated. Hopefully you guys got some extra info from this episode. You might have been wondering stuff about like the transformation magic, the charm and everything. And hopefully my added details to, of course, what was mentioned by the production team and stuff could help you guys out in some way, shape or form. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Ciao.